What is going on, guys? I didn't have a chance to do my radio show this week because the Ball State football game and the election were going on, so I decided it's a Wednesday night. Let's relax, have a little bit of fun, come in the studio. I called up a buddy of mine, Dakota. He talks about a little bit different sports than I normally talk about on my show. We're going to get into things a little bit different than just football today, and I'm pretty excited about that. Pretty excited just to talk to a friend in the studio, just relax, make it real easy. But Dakota, how you doing?
Doing pretty well, living the dream.
You feeling good?
I feel like a peach.
You know what? Speaking of living a dream, you are from the Chicago area,
Yes, sir.
and we are 8 days removed from probably the biggest sports moment of your life.
Oh my
You're
God.
right now wearing your Cubs, your little Cubs hoodie.
Calling me out.
How does it feel, dude? I can't imagine. How does it feel?
To be completely honest, it still doesn't feel real. I mean, I know that sounds really cliche, but like when it first happened, I really didn't celebrate. I didn't go nuts. I kind of just sat in the couch, kind of like with my hands like on my face, just in awe. I couldn't process it. I really couldn't. I mean, after all those years of just poor years, I remember it was a few years ago, back when Theo Epstein took over. If you'd go on Bleacher Report or any of the big news sites, all you would see about the Cubs would just be prospects. You wouldn't hear anything about the team save for Anthony Rizzo or Starlin Castro's stats because there was really nothing to report about. I mean, the big talk was trades. Who are they going to get? Which prospects? And then, when you see those draft picks, those prospects kind of come into fruition and they start succeeding.
Yeah, I mean, as a Cardinals fan, I'm watching this game and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I don't like the Cubs. I kind of want the Indians to win. But I know that I could live 80 more years, and this will be a top 10 biggest sports moment in my life. And for some reason, when the Cubs won, my first thought was, oh no, they actually did it. Now all my friends are going to give me some crap about this. But then I thought, wow, this is cool, man. And I got this weird sense of happiness because I was telling your roommate, what's interesting to me about the Cubs is the first thing I think about when I think of them is like little kids with their dads at a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
I think of family. And like when you think of other teams, you might just think of some random baseball player, or you think of like the Red Sox and just some like sometimes like an annoying fan or something like that. But with the Cubs, I always just I thought family. And I thought about people who were so passionate about something even when it didn't feel like they ever had a reason to be passionate. And I just felt so good for Cubs fans. I ended up being the one on Twitter retweeting all the congrats Cubs stuff, and I just felt so good for them.
No, that's totally exactly how it was. I mean, I just remember growing up, being 6 to 8 years old, playing in the outfield, or not playing in the outfield.
I was like, whoa.
We would always sit in the bleachers, center left field, wait in line outside of Wrigley, and, whoever you were standing in line with, you'd become friends with those people, and those people would probably sit near you. And, they call it the friendly confines for a reason. There's that sense of camaraderie. Everyone's in it together, after the years of not winning a championship. And you're still fans of that organization. It's that weird sense of family and camaraderie that's like none other.
Man, I just can't imagine how much fun it must have been. Like, for a second I thought, wow, being a Cubs fan, this would be like the greatest thing ever. Because I know that it's like with you and all your friends and family, you can all we did it. You have a we did it moment. You can text all your friends, they all get it. They all get the fact you went through all these years of just thinking this is literally never going to happen. You know what I mean? Like you always think to yourself like, oh my God, we got so close. It's never going to happen.
That was super cool to see my dad that excited. It's good to see him get worked up about something like that in a long time.
And to see all the grandpas like on Facebook, you know what I mean, just rejoicing and like how happy they just genuinely were.
Like that dad who was not the dad, the old guy who was sitting out by his dad's grave listening to the game on the radio with him.
way too heartwarming.
That's unbelievable.
That one got me a little bit. I was like,
a little bit of sniffles.
Oh my man, that's my boy out there.
That's my boy.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's so cool, dude.
It was unreal. I mean, just growing up to that, and getting batting practice balls from all those players out in the outfield. I have vivid memories of getting a ball from Mark Pryor, back in his prime. Shouts out.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Baseball is probably like my fourth or fifth favorite sport right now. I don't really care for it. Honestly, that was the second baseball game I watched this season. I went to one in St. Louis back in probably August, and then the funny thing is I wasn't even going to watch Game 7. I was sitting down on the couch, and I got an update saying that Fowler had hit the leadoff home run at the top of the first. And the first thing I was like, I have to turn this on.
Yeah, it's a spectacle.
I was like, you know what? I'll watch a little bit, and if I feel bored, I'll just turn it off. I
Right.
couldn't turn it off. I couldn't look away.
No, you can't.
I was like, oh my God, they're really gonna win the World Series.
It was unbelievable.
And then-
I mean,
and then
because
the
they were doing
Indians-
so well.
And then the Indians are like, psych.
Who would have thought Rajay Davis hits a 2-run home run?
Dude, the funny thing is I looked at him. The second he walked up to bat, I thought to myself, that dude looks like he could slug. And so I go on Twitter, and the first tweet I see is, he's terrible. And I was like, oh, maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. So the next at bat, he hits it, and I was like, I don't know anything about baseball, and I know what I'm talking about. I felt smart for about 30 seconds.
Off of Aroldis Chapman, of all people. I mean,
Well-
given he was fatigued, but...
You know, my girlfriend, she was watching it with me, and she was a pitcher for softball in high school, and she was telling me, she's like, all he does is throw heat. I'm like, well, you know, that's who he is. He's a fastball pitcher. He's like the fastest fastball of all time. He averages like 100 miles an hour. I was like,
Right.
I don't even know anything about baseball, but I know the man's just straight heat.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, if he just keeps throwing those fastballs, she's like, the batter's going to eventually find that spot. And I'm like, you think so? She's like, well, look, he keeps hitting it foul. He's starting to figure out the pitch.
Yeah.
And then she's like, so if he keeps throwing that pitch, he's going to hit it. And like about 2 hits later, it went at yard. And I looked at her, I was like, damn. She knew what she was talking about. I was proud. I was proud of her.
He was dipping under 100 too, which I mean, that's not saying a lot. 99 still nothing to
Nothing to scoff at there.
No.
But, and then it's funny. The second that ball went yard, he came back with, I think it was a couple of like sliders right after that.
he's trying to church it up a little bit.
Yeah, the second he did that, I was like, at least my man understands. He understands that he needs to throw something other than just straight heat.
Yeah.
So he changed it up a little bit. So I was proud of the guy. But so this weekend, oh my goodness, dude.
Woo.
I have recently become a huge MMA fan. It was like a strictly casual MMA fan where I would pretty much only watch Jon Jones fights. He was my favorite fighter, and if I saw he was on a card, I would always tune in. It's kind of like what Conor McGregor is right now for the majority of fans. That was Jon Jones with me.
Right.
I knew the guy never lost.
Polarizing figure.
Yeah, the first time I ever felt the need to go watch a Jon Jones fight, like really go out of my way to go to like a B-dubs and watch it, was when he fought Rashad Evans.
Right.
That card, I was like, okay, I got to go watch this.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I was just so into Jon Jones. And then I watch a little bit more, and McGregor comes along, and I mean Anderson Silva too. He was another one that like these big name guys were drawing me in. Ronda Rousey.
Those were the fighters they would show on ESPN. You know, that's when they would have the little blurbs on SportsCenter. Those would be the only fighters you would see. I mean, it still kind of is.
That's what I'm saying. I was such a casual fan. I watched the superstars.
Right.
I watched the undefeateds, the champions of long time.
Right.
Now I can't stop. I watch every card.
Unbelievable.
I watch every card.
Unbelievable. You got the bug, man.
I haven't missed a card in several months. I mean, I bought 202. It was my first one I ever paid with for my own money, and I felt like every dime was worth it on 202. I felt like
that was a great card.
yeah, and you know, I've become so much of a fan now. It's not just casual like fighters I watch. I don't just watch the Jon Joneses. I'll watch anyone fight, and I'll enjoy it. But I do have to admit, my favorite fighter is probably Conor McGregor. It's so hard not to like the dude. He helped draw me in a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like he kind of helped push me over the edge. That Jose Aldo fight just kind of pushed me over the edge just a tiny
like maybe
bit.
I'm gonna have to follow this guy a little bit more.
And
you
I
know,
actually
pay
watched
attention.
that fight with you. We watched that fight together, and I was the only one in the room that had openly said I was rooting for Conor. Everyone else kind of said they wanted Jose to win.
That's true.
The second I thought he tripped, and I was watching it, and I said I thought he tripped.
He was out.
And I didn't understand what happened. We were all silent. I remember we were all silent.
I blame it on the McCarthy kick in the face that put him out.
I do. He kneed him just straight in the nose.
Yeah,
too.
that was bad. Regardless, he was flatlined. He was done.
No, his night was definitely over at that point. But, that kind of pushed me over the edge of being an MMA fan. And now this upcoming weekend, we have arguably the greatest MMA card of all time, UFC 205, Madison Square Garden, headlined by Conor McGregor and Eddie Alvarez. And I have been dying to talk to you about this a little bit. I don't really get to see you around as much as I used to, so I've been dying to sit down and just talk to you about some UFC 205.
Oh, man.
So we're actually going to watch this card together this weekend.
Yeah,
you
that's
had
gonna
to
be
get off
wild.
work a little bit, so you could come see it. You just found out you had a shift
A little
last
bit of
minute.
a close call,
A little bit of a close call, but you managed to figure it out. Now we have a whole day of fights to sit down and watch. I'm a little upset. I really wanted to watch Tim Kennedy fight, But looks like that got pulled last second because of like a
Rashad, I couldn't say it was a.
They said it was like a suspicious thing on his MRI.
Yeah, something fishy like that the doctors felt the need to yank him beforehand. I mean, I think
Rashad was about to get pieced up in that fight anyways. But
that would not have been pretty for him. Tim Kennedy's not an easy matchup for anybody.
I know he hasn't fought in 2 years, but that dude's fighting bigger fights over across seas right now.
He's a dog, man.
He's a Green Beret, man.
You know, he's got stout stand-up. His ground game's great. You know, I mean, he's not the best off of his back, but naturally, you know, aggressive wrestlers like him they have that style. But, you know, it's the same. It's good luck putting him on his back. I mean, that's why you got to have a crafty stand-up striker, or in the case of the Yoel Romero fight, just someone who's a physical specimen.
And he should have beat Yoel Romero.
Also on the card as well, Yoel Romero.
Yeah, that's another fight, man. I mean, we're gonna get into some of these fights, but wow. I was just upset. I mean, and the thing about him, he's just so naturally strong. Tim Kennedy just built like differently.
Got that dad strength.
He's just so thick. You know what I mean? Like, you see his body, he's just thick. Yeah, he's got the military strength. He's got that body strength where he doesn't need to use weights to get gigantic.
Yeah, he was getting targeted by USADA for a while, and he's not the kind of
he's
person
also
you mess
targeted by
with.
ISIS.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean,
did you hear the story that ISIS? Apparently, the FBI called him and said ISIS is trying to literally has a hit out for you.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Did you hear he pulled a gun on the USADA guy?
I did hear that.
They come unannounced. They don't tell you who they are. They're not required to show you any form of identification. So when somebody's coming to your door asking you to pee in a cup and, draw blood from you, naturally you're going to be skeptical. If they come to your house, and this is a military man, what is he, Green Beret, I believe? Green Beret. That man's going to be locked and loaded. He's not going to pee in a cup for you right there.
Yeah, that's the last dude I'm sneaking up on.
No.
He said he dropped 150 G's on a a security for his house because ISIS is literally trying to kill him.
No kidding.
Yeah,
I think he was tweeting, though. I don't know if that was in regards to him tweeting, "Come and get me, ISIS," or something.
That was definitely a part of it. Chael Sonnen was talking on his podcast to him just I think it was yesterday, and he said, maybe 2 days ago, and he said something like, he's like, so what does that feel like? And he just said, it's not ideal. He said, having ISIS try to kill me is not ideal.
Especially when you realize the threat's potentially real. So now he's...
It's not like you have another UFC fighter trying to knock you out. You have a terrorist group literally trying to kill you. So,
right.
That is not ideal. But what else is not ideal is having him pulled off the card. I was very excited for that. But let's look at some of the matchups that are actually going to happen. Anything you want to talk about first?
I'd have to say one of the biggest cards that I'm looking forward to is easily Chris Weidman and Yoel Romero. I mean, mainly because it's an interesting matchup for Chris Weidman. I don't really know where he's going to go from here. He's coming off that loss from Luke Rockhold, and this isn't an easy matchup for him.
No, I don't think Romero's an easy matchup for anybody.
No. I mean, he's had some close calls with some tough fighters, like a Brad Tavares, for example. He gave him a good run for his money. I mean, it was later in the fight he started to gain some strength. But I think that's Weidman's game right there. He's going to have to, fight at a distance a little bit. I don't know if he can out-wrestle Yoel Romero, so we're just going to have to see if his technical boxing can outpoint him. I'm interested to see what Yoel Romero's game plan is.
I can honestly say I haven't watched way too much of Yoel Romero.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched a couple fights. I've watched more of Weidman than I have Romero, but am I right in saying Weidman hasn't won since the USADA testing?
That makes sense. I mean, I'm not entirely sure when that matches up with his timeline, but I mean, regardless, I'd like to think that he had a tough fight with Luke Rockhold. I mean, he was showing some strength in the first couple of rounds, but Rockhold's not easy for anybody. I think he was sleeping on Bisping that second time they fought. Bisping's, he's like a fine wine, he's getting better with age, it's one of those weird things.
Man, he's looking good.
He's looking pretty good.
Shin looked good, too, after a couple of H-bombs landed right there, too.
He doesn't want to fight anybody, though. He's trying to get that GSP money fight.
Oh, I mean, I am, too. I don't even know how to fight, and I'll take a GSP fight.
I think he knows he's getting to that point in his career. He's a smart, crafty veteran, and he knows if he wants to keep this reign up for a little bit, he's going to have to kind of milk it.
Yeah.
He's got a line of killers waiting for him.
Jacare. Jacare's in the cut.
Jacare.
Right? He's waiting in the cut right now.
The alligator, man, he's waiting for him.
Oh, yeah.
And then Gegard Mousasi's my sleeper pick for champion right now.
Well, Musasi's got a fight already on the books right now.
He
So.
does.
Is he fighting Uriah Hall?
Yep, round 2. They're going the second time around, which as long as he doesn't get caught by a spinning back kick,
There's 2 Uriah Halls. There's the Uriah Hall that's going to have the greatest knockout you've ever seen in your life, or the Uriah Hall that's going to get put to sleep.
That's going to look like a coward, the whole
there's a
fight.
Uriah Hall that
No
gets put to
offense to
sleep.
Uriah Hall. He's a murderer, but just sometimes he just doesn't show up to fight.
When he turns the light on, it's the most spectacular thing you've ever seen.
It's unbelievable.
When the light's off, you wonder why he's even in the UFC.
If he can just put it all together consistently, that man's he's scary.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, he just has his own mental barriers I think he has to get over. If you watched him on The Ultimate Fighter, I thought it was pretty clear. He's the only thing keeping himself back. He doesn't really have this level of confidence that you would hope a guy with such talent would have.
No, he's got that. I think he said he was bullied when he was a kid, so I think he kind of has that.
Bullying now.
I think he might kind of have that little bit of insecurity still left in him. Like maybe he's not able to match up as well with some people, so that gives him that bit of a, like you said, a confidence issue, and I think that's part of his problem. But if I don't know if he's seeing a sports psychologist, I'm sure at this point in his career that's something. Yeah, I'm sure that's something he's dabbled into. But I mean, if you can unleash that beast every fight, that's a potential title contender right there.
If he doesn't unleash that beast, he's about to get bullied again. That childhood's about to come back to life against Jacare.
He's just a little too timid, and if he doesn't bring that out in the second Gegard Mousasi fight, he's going to get worked.
Well, let's go back to 205 here. Who do you think is going to win that Weidman or Romero fight?
Oh, that's a tough call for me, honestly. I want to say that Weidman's going to eke it out. I think he's the smarter fighter. I think he's got the bigger gas tank as well.
Got a real reach advantage.
So as long as he doesn't somehow get knocked out in first, second round, Yoel Romero's got a gas tank too, but it's more once it hits the third, fourth round. If he ever makes it to the fourth round in a fight, he's got that kind of sneaky cardio where he saves everything up for that one shot or that one takedown. But you can clearly tell he's gassed, but he's milking it. He's saving it all up.
I'm gonna go with the surprise pick. I'm gonna go with Yoel Romero here. That dude's just such a freak. You know what I mean?
Not a bad pick.
Like
at
I said,
all.
I don't remember correctly, and I don't want to give false information, but I don't think Weidman's won since USADA. Yoel Romero, I'm pretty sure, is somehow dancing around these USADA tests. He looks like a sculpture.
I think he's pulling the Overeem excuse. He's blaming it on horse meat. That's not the thing, but I think he said it was tainted supplements, which, if I'm not mistaken, they proved. But, I'm still not fully convinced, if I can be honest. But he does seem like he's got one of those naturally gifted bodies where he's just a specimen. He's a freak.
If Weidman wins, I think he has, like I said, he's a lot longer. He's a 5-inch reach advantage. Hopefully he can pick his shots from a distance. Mm-hmm. But, man, I feel like Yoel might just close that distance real quick. And if he lands the right shot, I mean, we've seen Weidman got pieced up in that fight against Rockhold. I mean, I think Yoel Romero, also, he's got God on his side,
He does. He's
the
soldier of God.
And if there's any tiebreaker out there, he's got God on his side.
The no gay Jesus, if you remember that remark.
These guys have a combined 2 losses, man.
Yeah.
I don't see this fight going the distance.
You don't think so?
Nah.
If my
82%
prediction...
of Yoel's fights end in knockout.
I'll give 2 predictions. The one I think is more likely, which is a Weidman decision, and then I think Weidman might submit him in the second round. Surprisingly enough, I could see it happening. I
mean, that would be really interesting. It would be cool to see Weidman get back to that spot where he's fighting for the title again. But if he loses this one, he's on a sharp decline, and he needs to watch out because there's some killers in that weight class.
There is, yeah.
And he's going to be having to wait in quite a long line if he can't win this one.
Good to see some life in that division, too.
Yeah, and Yoel's number 4. He's right up there for the next title shot or maybe one fight away. Yeah. If he wins this next fight. I mean, he's fighting the number 2 guy in Weidman.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and take that back. My big fight that I'm looking forward to is Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Michael Johnson.
I know you're excited for that one.
Yeah, Khabib's my boy. I remember watching him.
The bear wrestler Khabib.
The bear wrestler from the age of 12 years old, wrestling a bear with a
23
muzzle on his mouth.
Oh, man.
He's a freak.
It doesn't matter who you fight. If you're 23-0 in MMA...
That's why I'm interested to see him fight Michael Johnson right now, because that's not an easy test for
Michael
a comeback.
Johnson just lit up Poirier.
Yeah, and Poirier's no joke either.
No, he's not.
Poirier's a killer, too.
He lit him up.
But
that was a nasty one.
Khabib, he had that comeback fight against Daryl Horcher, I believe his name was, and I mean, he looked good. He looked like Khabib Nurmagomedov, but he was against a short minute replacement in Darrell Horcher, who's definitely not ready to be fighting fighters of the caliber of Khabib.
Right.
So to see him go up against Michael Johnson, who does have a pretty good wrestling base, but we've seen him be taken down in the past, so that's why it's kind of interesting.
81% takedown defense, but the problem is Khabib will try and take you down 35 times in a fight if he can.
Yeah, he's got that real unorthodox stand-up where he's hitting you from weird angles and he's real aggressive. He knocked out what was that fighter's name? Oh, geez. Thiago Tavares. He knocked out Thiago Tavares with a real wacky short jab uppercut that put him to sleep. He folded him. And, I mean, that was probably, I believe, the only knockout that he's had in the UFC, or at least, standing. But as long as he can, maintain that aggressive pace and put it on Johnson and put him up against the cage, I don't see Johnson lasting, given Khabib's track record.
What's interesting? Khabib just got jumped in the rankings. Tony Ferguson's now the number one contender in the lightweight division.
Well,
so Khabib's fighting right now to take his number one spot back. So he needs to put on a good showing if he wants to take that spot back from Ferguson.
After that Ferguson Dos Anjos fight, man, he showed. I didn't expect Ferguson to show that amount of life. It showed he had a gas tank too. He kept that pace up for 5 rounds.
He was exciting, too. Like, in the 5th round, he was still, like, doing his little showmanship, you know what I mean? A little dancing here and there.
He did that little spin around. And
Dos Anjos was just bleeding, breathing heavy, and Ferguson looked like he could go another couple rounds.
Yeah, he was dancing in there, and he did that little spin, like a real slow spin, like he was doing a fake spinning back fist or something. And Dos Anjos even covered up. He
went
covered
straight
up.
for the body.
That's
after
how
that.
bad he had him. He was in his head.
Dos Anjos didn't. Oh, I mean, you don't know what's going on with
No,
something
absolutely
like that.
not. But I mean, like a slow spin like that, it's it's almost laughable if you do that at the beginning of a fight. But to see that a fighter's that intimidated by any type of movement they're making, he's in his head.
You could see how emotional Michael Johnson was in his last fight against Poirier when he won.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of lost control of his emotions there towards the end in his celebration. He apologized for some of his actions afterwards, but
Right.
you could see how much it meant to him. Could you imagine beating Khabib Nurmagomedov? How excited he would be, how quickly he just keeps shooting up through these rankings.
That'd be huge for him. I mean, in all honesty, the only way I'd see him winning is a big flash knockout on the feet if he can
It's
catch
not
him
happening
somehow.
on the ground.
No, it's definitely not happening on the ground. I'll tell you that. I mean, he's definitely not going to submit him in any way, shape, or form. I mean, Khabib's just a freak there. You're not going to do anything. He's just going to swarm you, and he's like a wet blanket. He's all over you. You're not going to get back up. But Johnson's got that sneaky power, man. If he hits you with one of those hard lefts, you're done.
The thing for me is a knockout can happen in any fight, at any time. That's the crazy thing about this sport. It can end at any time. Khabib could knock out Michael Johnson. You never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What I think's going to happen, though, is I think Khabib's going to close that distance. I think he's going to get several takedowns, probably finish this round of the fight, or take it to decision. No one's just figured out the puzzle that is Khabib yet in the UFC. No one's figured out that puzzle yet.
He's got that weird, Russian strength. They're picking up trees. Like Joey
He's
Diaz
wrestling
says,
bears.
they're out there in the streets picking up trees. They're not picking up weights.
He's
wrestling bears.
That's what I'm saying. Khabib knows.
I think he was a Sambo world champ at the age of, 16?
Probably the age of
16
6'2".
years old in Russia. That's no joke.
No.
He's been training since he was probably in diapers,
I'm not convinced he's not Putin's right-hand man.
Well, I'm sure he's in their back pocket. I mean, look at Fyodor Emelianenko back in the day. Putin was going to his fights. He was a big deal back then.
Well, you got to have the killer in your pocket just in case.
But then again, Khabib is training at AKA in, I want to say San Jose in California. I think that's where it's based. But, he's
Imagine just Khabib in D.C. just practicing some grappling together.
he's Americanizing himself. DC says that's his boy. That's his little project, They love Khabib over there.
I got Khabib winning this fight. I'll say by decision.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I don't think he's going to finish it, but I don't think Michael Johnson's going to land that flash knockout. I think he's going to be too busy trying to defend the takedown.
I could also see him submitting Johnson.
That's possible.
In similar fashion to the Darrell Horcher fight. I could see him just swarming him on the ground. Johnson really, he's going to be struggling off his back. He trains at a tough gym too. So his best bets, that finish, because he's not going to be able to get up. It's going to be tough. So if he's squirming around trying to shrimp out in any way, shape, or form, Khabib's going to jump on that neck real quick, whether it's a rear naked, maybe an arm triangle potentially, but I could see that being a likely outcome.
I'm really excited for that fight, and I think the crazy part of that fight is it's a Fox Sports 1 prelim.
Yeah.
Khabib is fighting on a prelim.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
That's definitely a strategic move by the UFC, though. That's why, like you said, just recently they moved up Boch and Natal to the main card, correct?
They moved it up to the prelims. It was supposed to be on the early prelims on Fight Pass. They moved it up to the Fox Sports 1 prelim to replace when Kennedy and Evans' fight got pulled from the card.
That makes sense.
There's actually 6 fights on the main card, but before we get to our title fights, there's one more fight I want to go over before we get to the 3 big fights of the night. You weren't as excited about this fight as I am. I'm actually very excited. Kevin Gastelum and Donald Cerrone. I'm a Gastelum fan and a Cerrone fan.
It's been growing on me, I'll be honest. I was looking at it the other day, and I was...
Gastelum's underrated, man.
He is. He's always been an underdog. When he was on The Ultimate Fighter, he was last pick, and he ended up winning the show.
Funny story about that. So I had the season had fully aired and been released on Fight Pass, and I was not caught up on the UFC really at the time. I decided I wanted to go back because I'd read that was a good season of the Ultimate Fighter, and it sure was. So I get to the finale, and it's Gastelum and Uriah Hall. I don't know who wins, even though it's already finished. And in my head, I'm thinking, there's no way Gastelum wins this, but I really want him to. When he won, I was in shock. I couldn't believe he beat Uriah Hall. Nobody thought he was going to win that fight, man. But that kid's got some heart.
He's a scrapper, man. He's a junkyard dog.
He's got some heart. He's actually ranked higher than Cerrone is. But
Cerrone's
on
a lightweight
tear right now. He's on a tear right now.
I think he's so much more comfortable at welterweight because he was cutting a lot of weight to hit lightweight, man. That was a lot of weight.
That combo he hit on Rick Story was just unbelievable.
Unbelievable. You know, you can't practice that. You can, obviously, but it's a lot of practice. But to be able to land it in a fight... Yeah, clean?
He didn't even seem to think it was as impressive as the rest of us did. He said he thought he just hit a clean combo, and it's like, yeah, man, but come on, dude. You don't see people hit. You don't see people connect with a combo
4
that
or 5
clean.
Straight punches like that. Unbelievable. Head kick.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, that was unreal.
This fight's really interesting to me because I'm a fan of both guys. I really didn't expect this to happen. It was supposed to be the Cerrone and Lawler fight, which was going to be just a brawl.
That would have been... Fight of the year. That would have been my fight of the year candidate.
Cerrone said he still wants to do the fight. Cowboy and Gastelum. This is a tough call. Cowboy's been on just a roll lately. I don't know who's going to win this fight, man. You know, I think if it goes to the ground, Gastelum's going to take the fight. On the feet, I think Cerrone.
Really, you think if it goes to the ground, Gastelum's got it?
I do think he can take it on the ground.
Really, because Cerrone's got a guard. He's got a tough guard. So if he gets him down and if he can control him down there, yeah, I can see it happening. But Cerrone's no slouch on the ground. He's got a killer guard game.
I could see him catching him in a triangle to keep this on the feet. I also, if I had to bet on this fight, though, I would say Cerrone either wins by knockout or the fight goes to decision. Mm-hmm. And I think if it goes to decision, I'll take Gastelum in the fight.
Really?
I think if the fight ends, though, I think Cerrone wins it by stoppage. But I don't see Gastelum stopping Cowboy.
No, I definitely don't see Gastelum stop. I mean, it'd have to be a flash knockout, of course. I mean, I don't see him submitting him by any stretch of the imagination. I just think the key in this fight is Cerrone's reach. I think he's going to keep him at a distance. He's got those sharp, straight punches. You know, he knows how to gauge his distance. And, I mean, Gastelum's no slouch either. He can put that forward pressure on a fighter, but Cerrone's really experienced, and he's no joke. I think this is a tougher matchup for Kelvin, and I just do not see him winning this fight. I mean, if it goes to the ground, I think that Cerrone can submit him somehow. I don't think he can keep up with his ground game. But then again, I mean, I could be counting out Kelvin Gastelum right now. I very well could, because like I said, he's no slouch.
Well, we're saying, I mean, when Gastelum beat Uriah Hall was the freak striker that could hit you from anywhere, knockout power at any given second, and Gastelum he made the fight his own.
Yeah.
And I could see a Gastelum like that maybe in this fight where he kind of controls the fight where he wants it to go, whether he wants it to go to a clinch or whether he wants to go to the ground.
Right.
If he controls the fight in the way that he wants to and the way he game plans, I definitely think that he could win, because I think Cerrone is probably planning to stand and bang.
Yeah, because if you look at who Gastelum's 2 losses are, Tyron Woodley and Neil Magny, both split decision losses. Those are tough guys, man.
I mean, his only losses in the UFC are split decision.
But that's what scares me about with the Cerrone fight, though, is Neil Magny has kind of that... I mean, his stand-up is nowhere near as polished as Cowboy's, I'd argue, but he's also got that kind of gangly reach that Cerrone does a little bit. I think Cerrone's got a little more power. Actually, not a little more, a lot more power than Neil Magny does. But I think that's the key. If Magny was able to keep him at range and hit him with some of those 1-2s, that's big for Cerrone. That plays into his game. If he can keep him at distance with kicks and straight punches, that's going to play into his favor.
And Cowboy's never looked better than he does right now here at welterweight.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see when you put him against a top 5 guy like Gastelum, a guy whose only losses have come by split decision against, the champion right now,
He's
Tyron
not
Woodley.
as drained or anything.
No, this should be a great fight, man. I'm really excited. Like I said, I think this one's getting a little underrated because people were so looking forward to the Lawler-Cowboy fight that when this fight came about, they felt a little underwhelmed by the replacement. But I feel like if this fight was made without Lawler having ever been in the conversation, people would have been more excited.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree. And then, like you said, before we hit that, another thing that I was just looking at, I keep looking through this card, and I keep seeing more fights that I keep forgetting
pop
about.
Up everywhere, man.
Frankie Edgar and Jeremy Stevens.
On the prelims.
Unbelievable.
On the prelims.
On the prelims. I mean, Jeremy Stevens got roasted a little bit
Who's
by
that guy?
Conor McGregor.
Oh, no, I was just wondering who. I didn't know Jeremy Stevens. Who's that guy? I'm trying to keep it PG.
Who is that guy?
Oh, what was that?
What
did you say, sir?
Huh? What? But Jeremy Stevens just, even though that comment, I'd argue he is easily one of the hardest hitters in that division. Easily.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting fight for me because Frankie Edgar looked like he was on a roll. He looked about as good as he's ever looked, and then he ran into Jose Aldo. And Jose looked like a pissed off Jose Aldo that just lost his title and was looking for redemption. He took him the distance. Jose looked great.
Crisp.
Frankie didn't really have, for a guy named The Answer, he didn't have one.
No, you're absolutely right.
he didn't have
his
one.
game plan wasn't really there. He couldn't really get into his rhythm. He wasn't landing combos like Frankie Edgar does.
I wonder if he was I don't want to say intimidated because he's a all-world fighter. But I just feel like maybe because it was Jose, I feel like maybe any other fighter, I'm not sure if anyone else in that division is going to beat Frankie right now. I think Jose was probably the one, maybe McGregor is the other guy that would take him out at this time. I'm not sure if anyone else in that division is going to have a solution to beating Frankie Edgar.
Right.
Unless he gets cracked by a big shot here from Stevens.
Exactly. I think that's his biggest bet is his boxer's chances.
But I think Frankie's the better overall fighter.
I would agree. I'm interested to see if Frankie tries to take this fight to the ground. I don't know if he wants to play into Jeremy Stevens' striking. I mean, I know Frankie's he can gauge his distance pretty well too for how short he is for the division because he's not big for that featherweight division. Jeremy Stevens cuts a lot of weight for featherweight.
He looks a lot bigger than Frankie does.
Yeah, he was a lightweight. And he was a powerhouse at lightweight as well. And now that
when you drop down those divisions and you have that power, it's like what McGregor did. McGregor's clearly a more natural lightweight. But when he goes down to featherweight, he's just dropping bombs on people and their chins can't take it.
I mean, I should also make note that Frankie was also a lightweight. He was obviously the lightweight champ at one point, but
times have changed, sir.
Times have changed, and Frankie's kind of hitting that point in his career where I'm kind of curious to see where he goes from here. I mean, is he going to drop to bantamweight? I've heard some rumors there, and I think if he gets a decisive loss to Jeremy Stevens, he's going down. He's going down in weight. Yeah.
So what would you think of like a Cruz Edgar fight?
Very interesting. I like the sound of that, if I can be honest.
Well, Cruz got to get past Garbrandt, but that's a whole other story. We're going to stick to 205 here as much as we can because there's so much to cover. Who you got in the Edgar Stevens fight?
Ooh, this is tough. If I'm a betting man, I'm going to say Frankie Edgar by decision since it's only 3 rounds. But you can never rule out Jeremy Stevens, but I'm going to have to say Frankie Edgar by unanimous decision.
Okay. I think I could see that too. I think if Frankie wins, it's going to be by going the distance. If Stevens wins, he's going to catch him with something big on the feet.
Yeah.
But I think Frankie will be able to survive. I think he's going to implement a good game plan where he tries to avoid standing and banging for too long of extended periods of time, and I think he'll take the win.
Yeah, exactly.
That's our main event of the prelims. How about we move on to the championship fights on the card? Joanna, Karolina, the Polish girls battling it out for the title.
Joanna Jędrzejczyk
two of the probably most adorable fighters in the world.
Joanna scares me. I don't know about you.
She scares me, but I mean, she's pretty.
Yeah, when she
That
dolls
Polish,
herself up,
dude, that
I will
Polish
be honest.
strength is no joke.
No.
I have one of my good friends. His mom is actually from Poland. We were outside one day. He was wanting to build a little fire for a bonfire, right? And so he has an axe and a piece of wood, and he's trying to split the wood. And his mom probably weighs about as much as Joanna, maybe like 10, 20 pounds less. She's a skinny little woman. Comes out there, she's like, let me see the axe real quick. Just starts splitting wood like she's been doing it her whole life. And she's
Probably has been doing it her
Yeah,
whole
I'm just saying
life.
she had that strength, man. These Polish women are strong out there. I think in this fight, I think it looks a lot more interesting on paper than it's really going to be.
Yeah,
I think Joanna's
agree
going
with that.
to Carolina looks. I mean, like I said, she's a pretty girl, but I don't know how pretty she's going to be looking by the end of Saturday night.
Yeah, she's a lot smaller than Joanna, at least in terms of reach and height.
Haven't they fought before?
They have, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say Joanna beat her by decision, I believe.
I don't remember how what the outcome of that fight was. I had heard that they had fought before. I've never watched the fight, so that actually would be an interesting fight to go try and look up and see if we can find it before Saturday night and see how they looked when they fought each other in the past.
I'm looking. No, they did not fight in the past.
I thought I heard Carolina said that they had fought. Maybe I'm wrong.
They might have trained together. I know that there's a girl that was on The Ultimate Fighter that Joanna actually fought, but that's besides the point. But regardless,
Little
it's just,
tidbits you find on your phone, huh?
it's a little bit, but she's just, I cannot see Carolina having much success with her striking, her style. She's kind of got that similar, Muay Thai striking that Joanna's got, but I just don't see her bringing anything to the table that Joanna hasn't seen before. And it's either going to be a third-round TKO from Joanna or it's going the distance. I mean, she's just going to keep her at bay with those crisp 1-2s. She's going to come in with those quick Muay Thai elbows, knees. She strikes from everywhere.
If you've watched any of the embedded vlogs that have come out the last 2 days through the UFC, they show them both training a little bit. Joanna looks so much faster than her.
Yeah.
Her striking looks so clean on the mitts, man.
I don't know if you saw that. I'm sure they actually showed it in the embedded, but Dana White put it on his Instagram video of Joanna hitting mitts, and she was throwing elbows.
Oh, yeah. Those elbows look dangerous.
That's nasty.
And in her last fight, at the very beginning of the fight against Claudia, she looked like she was in trouble there. And I was sitting there thinking, no way Joanna's actually going to lose. Man, she turned up at the end of the fight. It didn't even look... The second half of that fight was unbelievable.
No, she started to pick up steam.
She found a second gas tank and just went to town on her face.
Mind you, folks, this is, if you're not too familiar with the division, it's 115 pounds.
These are little women.
Straw weight.
But Joanna does not care.
If you look up highlights of Joanna, you're not going to think she's 115 pounds in there. I mean, obviously she's bulked up a little bit, but regardless, that's putting me to sleep in a minute. Not even a minute. One strike, I'm done.
Did she just move to American Top Team? Is that what it was she just moved to and started training with?
Oh, no kidding.
Was that who it was? I don't want to get it wrong, but I know she just switched camps, and I thought it was American Top Team. She just started training with for this fight.
Oh, she is. Yep, you're absolutely right.
is,
That's a big move.
Good luck, Carolina.
Big move.
Good luck, girl.
That's 100% scary.
I think this fight's going to go, like you said, it's either going to be a TKO probably in the later half of the fight. Joanna's someone that likes to get a lot of strikes in. She hits a lot of hits, or she puts a lot of hits on your face.
Mm-hmm.
She has pretty crisp boxing
for
a 115-pound girl. I think she's going to either beat her by, just punch after punch after punch, just keep landing them until that amount of...
she's going to put her away, or do you think she's just going to keep her at bay with those strikes? And
I think she'll keep her at bay, and if she beats her, it'll be in the fourth round or later when that volume of punches... It's kind of like a Diaz fight. Those volume of punches start adding up towards the end. And I think, if anything, she'll put her away at the end, but I think it's probably going to go to decision and be a unanimous decision. I could even see it being 50-45 for unanimous.
Yeah.
Her winning all the rounds, maybe losing one early.
So long as she doesn't break her hand like she's done in the past, which has
got
kind of
another
limited her power.
Hey, she got another one.
Yeah, good point. But
she got elbows. I watched her use those elbows.
Maybe that's why she's preparing so much for the elbows.
She's okay breaking a hand because she's got another one and 2 elbows to work with.
Say, as long as she doesn't get hurt in that fight, I could see her putting her away easy.
I got Joanna retaining the title. I think that's probably the one title fight that I'm the least worried about one of these guys losing their belts.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to the co-main event. Oh my lord, this one I would watch this card any day of the week if this was the main event.
Oh, yeah.
Any day of the week. We
Easy.
have Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Woo!
Yeah. That's,
Woo! Oh my goodness, this is gonna be a straight brawl.
Oh my God, Tyron looked good. He looked
Dude, he
good
knocked out
against
Robbie
Robbie.
Lawler
I mean, it was only
easy.
3 minutes long, but still,
He looked good.
putting him away with that was unbelievable. He slept him. He slept
He
him.
slept him.
That was unbelievable.
The thing is, Steven could sleep anybody.
Steven, he worked Rory McDonald. And
Wonder-
Rory was, in my opinion, the number one contender right in that,
But that's
rightfully
that's
in that
post
division.
nose break McDonald, where everyone's been kind of saying, ever since that fight he had against Lawler the second time around, he hasn't looked the same since then. Wonder if
That's
there's a
true.
breathing problem going on. Where
And
in
I'm
those
under
later
the impression
rounds,
he rebroke it in training camp leading up to that fight.
And
So that,
you wonder-
obviously that never helps.
you wonder could he breathe right during that fight? When
No.
you're going to those later rounds, you got a guy like Stephen
never
Thompson
wanna-
in front of you. It's going to be hard to keep up with him, let alone when you have to breathe through your mouth the whole time.
You never want to get hit in the nose when something's wrong with it too. So even if it was in recovery at that point, it doesn't feel good. He's potentially rebroke it if I'm not mistaken.
We have arguably the most interesting and fun to watch striker in the UFC with Stephen Thompson.
Yeah.
And he's fighting against a guy, like we just said, that dominated Robbie Lawler in the first round with
Yep.
Tyron Woodley. And, I mean, if this fight goes to the ground, I feel like it's pretty obvious who's in favor in that scenario. If this fight goes to the ground, Woodley can wrestle.
No, he absolutely can.
He can definitely wrestle, and I think if this goes to the ground, Woodley could probably dominate down there. But man, getting inside that range of Thompson is not an easy task. It's not something you want to do. Try and close that distance because you don't want to get caught with a kick.
It's a matter if he can keep him on the ground too. I mean, that's the problem. If he can consistently keep taking him down for 5 rounds, I don't see that happening either. But from what I've seen of Tyron Woodley's ground game, I just don't see him putting Stephen Thompson away definitively with any type of submission, given Stephen Thompson doesn't panic. If he doesn't panic, and give up his back, any of those types of scenarios.
And Thompson, just the way he dashes in real quick, hits you and dashes back out. He just closes the distance so fast and then gets back out to a
karate.
point where only he can touch you. Like
Unbelievable.
Yeah, his
karate taekwondo.
yeah, I think it's point taekwondo, but maybe it's karate. I'm not an
Regardless,
expert.
One of
I'm
those
sorry.
martial arts.
But just watching him fight, he's such a technician on the feet, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just knows how to close the distance. He knows when to close the distance, and he knows how to keep you at bay pretty much at will.
Right. And, I mean, as we saw in the Rory McDonald fight when Tyron Woodley fought Rory McDonald, I should say, Rory did that exact same thing. He kept him at bay with those jabs and those straight punches. Tyron could not close the distance and take him down. He couldn't do anything. He looked bad. And that was back when Rory was doing a lot of his jab work. He was kind of just doing a lot of 1-2s or just consistently jabbing with Firas Zahabi in his corner. And it's kind of interesting to see what'll happen with Stephen Thompson, who's kind of got a little bit more in his arsenal with his kicks. He's got a full gamut of strikes that he can throw at him. So I'm interested to see what happens.
Who do you got winning the fight? Actually, before you give me that, I just want to say, isn't it interesting that the challenger is the favorite? He's the favorite to win the fight.
Yeah,
That's not the most common thing, man. It's not very
No,
common to see a guy like, Thompson fighting a champion, but he's the clear favorite to win the fight. I feel
was
like it's more
honestly-
popular to pick him than it is to pick the champion.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised to even see Tyron Woodley got that initial title fight against Robbie Lawler. I thought there were more deserving fighters, given he did win in a definitive fashion, so you can't really argue that, but I don't see him holding the belt long, and I think that Stephen Thompson's he's going to put him away in the second, if
Thompson-
not the first.
And they're so opposite, I feel like, of mentalities and the way they portray themselves to the public. Woodley has this, it's everybody against me, everyone's out to get me kind of mentality. And Thompson seems like the guy that you just want to be best friends with.
Yeah.
He seems like the nicest dude in the world. It's so easy to root for a guy like Stephen Thompson. And Woodley can make it hard to like him when, he tries to spin a lot of things about race, which can rub a lot of people the wrong way. And also, he's just, like I said, he has that everyone's out to get me kind of mentality.
Right.
Man, this should be a good one. I don't know who's going to win this fight. This fight kind of reminds me a little bit of the Alvarez-McGregor fight, in which you have a guy who I feel like could clearly win it on the ground, but they're both capable of just standing in the pocket and trading all fight long.
Right.
In this, you know what? I think what's going to happen, I'm going to jump aboard the hype train here. I'll take a new champion in Wonder Boy, But I wouldn't be surprised to see these guys rematch each other down the road if Thompson does win the fight.
Definitely.
I think Woodley's good enough to take out anybody in that division. And, it's a stacked division. But you might have yourself an interesting scenario where you have, Lawler might take on Thompson. Imagine that fight.
Yeah.
Imagine you have, Lawler and Wonderboy for the title. Then you have, Woodley and maybe Cowboy. The winner goes on for a title fight.
That's interesting to see too. To see if Cerrone can get past Gastelum.
The winner of that fight setting themselves up for
title contending
title
fight.
Contention.
Yep, easily. And then I think, given the results of this fight, I mean, if I could see that whoever wins the Gastelum Cerrone fight, they're gonna get Robbie Lawler, and then that winner of that fight's gonna, they're gonna contend for the title. I don't know unless they want to have someone else waiting in the ranks. Maybe, there's a whole gamut of fighters that they can run in there right now. But right now, most likely scenario that I see happening is Robbie Lawler versus winner of Cerrone Gastelum, and then the winner of that fight taking on whoever wins this championship fight.
Yeah, then I totally forgot we have Damian Maia we need to talk about in that division as well.
Yes.
I think this is what I think is going to happen in my opinion. I think the winner of Lawler I apologize. The winner of Thompson and Woodley is going to fight probably Damian Maia next.
I could see that
I think
happening.
Damian
They're not
Maia's
gonna
next
keep
in
him.
line.
Yep.
I think Robbie Lawler fights the winner of Gastelum and Cerrone.
Yep.
And then, maybe the winner of those two fights meet each other for a title fight as well.
Yeah, I was drawing a blank on Maia. I knew there was somebody
I was
leaving
too.
out
I was
there.
thinking. I was like, I was just going through this puzzle in my head the other day. Who am I missing? Damian Maia, man.
Damian Maia's a killer.
If you see let's imagine a title fight between Wonderboy and Damian Maia. That is the ultimate style of grappling versus striking.
Yep.
Ultimate.
Exactly. It's a matter of, if Thompson keeps that on the feet versus Maia keeping it on the ground. Because when Maia gets you on the ground, you're not getting up.
Sorry.
There's no way.
Sorry.
No way.
It's a wrap.
He doesn't even swarm you with any strikes. He's just going from point A to point B to point C only to try and find that submission. He might hit you with a couple pitter-patter shots, but that's not going to do anything. That's not ultimately what your goal is.
Just think about how exciting these fights are. Imagine Thompson. I guess because that's who I think is going to win. It could very easily be Woodley. Either way, imagine them fighting Maia. Imagine Cowboy and Lawler for the winner fighting for the title.
Unbelievable.
My mind's blown just thinking of that.
Fight of the year.
Oh my Lord. That fight would that Reddit blew apart when that fight was announced. It blew up. Everyone was just saying, what have we done to deserve this greatness upon us right now?
I think it was a sacrifice to the MMA gods for 205 happening.
Yeah, we've had plenty of sacrifices to the MMA gods recently. We
That's
lost
true.
an entire card. What was the card we just lost a couple weeks ago?
I think it was Manila.
Yeah, the entire Manila card we threw away for the MMA gods.
I think they just didn't want to be there in the first place.
Probably not. But we said, listen, we'll give you a whole card if that's what appeases you. We'll give you Tim Kennedy.
I was fine with that. They can take that Manila card.
We'll give you Tim Kennedy.
Yeah.
We'll give you everything.
But keep everybody else healthy. Knock on wood, please.
If you guys want to take somebody else, take one of the guys in the early prelims or something. But don't take anyone off this main card, please.
Vicente Luque or one of those guys.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this card and what's going to be really frustrating is, like I said, you're planning on coming over. Some other friends are planning on coming over. We're going to watch this fight together. It starts at 10 o'clock at night. It's a 6-fight main card with 3 title fights. We could be up till 2:30 in the morning watching this
Possibility.
card. And imagine the people overseas that'll be up till 9 a.m. watching this card.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm sorry for anybody overseas listening to this right now that's going to be having to watch these fights on Saturday. I know it's going to be great, but I can't imagine how exhausted you're going to be by the time that
I feel
the main
bad
event
for
is
everybody
over.
overseas, especially in Australia and the UK. Every time you see an RMMA, people are always complaining about it, but they're diehards. That's what they're willing to do. Stay up late and watch the fights. It's what they want to do.
Well, if there is ever a fight,
polarizing sport.
If there is ever a fight to stay up and watch to the very end, main event, title versus title, Eddie Alvarez, the lightweight champion, against the flyweight champion and the most exciting man in the sport,
Featherweight champion.
I'm sorry. You're right.
No.
It's getting late, guys. It is past 10 o'clock here on Wednesday. We're in the studio.
It
It's a
happens.
late night.
We're in a podcast.
We have Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor for the lightweight title in Madison Square Garden.
First time ever. New York just legalized mixed martial arts.
Like I said, I am a huge Conor McGregor fan, but I also like to think that I'm not too biased. I can see his weak points. I can see how he could lose a fight, how he could win a fight. I'm not here to fanboy all over Conor, but I am a big fan of the guy, and I definitely think he's proved to this point he's not just a hype machine.
No, he's definitely backed up all of his hype, I'd argue.
All of it. I mean, yeah, he lost to Nate Diaz, but he came back and put on a war.
That was an incredible fight. Incredible fight. I mean,
one of the best
it was a
fights
close
I've
fight.
ever watched.
It was a close fight.
I know you said
Conor,
you initially had thought Nate won. I definitely had thought Conor won.
I did, but rewatching it, I mean, it was a very close fight. I'm not gonna say that Conor by any stretch of the imagination dominated him. I mean, yeah, he rocked him a couple times, but
then you have the debate: Did Nate try and draw him down to the ground? And I don't think so. I think he got clipped.
He
a couple
definitely
times.
got clipped, but I mean, besides that, Nate was bringing it to him, and I mean, some of those later rounds, you saw a lot of Nate walking an exhausted Conor McGregor down, pushing him up against the cage. But then when they got off, Conor would land a couple big shots, but Nate was predominantly controlling that fight, I would argue. But Conor just kind of did more damage, and I mean, that played into his favor more, given that, I mean, is the Diaz style, or at least Nate's style more, as he hits you with that high volume of shots.
So whenever you ask anybody about the Alvarez and McGregor fight, you pretty much get the same answer for their predictions. You say, man, that's going to be a good fight. If it goes to the ground, Alvarez wins. If it's on the feet, McGregor wins. If it ends early, McGregor wins. If it's on I'm saying this is the typical response you're going to get. Early in the fight, if it ends, it's probably McGregor. If it goes deep, it's probably Alvarez. I don't want to give those answers. I want to give straight up what you think is going to happen, not if this happens, this guy wins, if this happens, this guy wins. I want to get straight to the point on this fight together here when we talk. Who do you think's going to win? Why do you think they're going to win? And don't just say, "Well, it's a good fight. We'll see what happens." We're not here to mess around today, folks.
Well, I mean, I'm going to start off by saying a lot of people kind of have some misconceptions as far as where McGregor stands. I mean, especially with the whole welterweight debacle, fighting Nate Diaz at welterweight, not once, but twice. And
I have my own thoughts about that, and I'll share that in just a minute.
And listen, folks, Nate Diaz is naturally a lightweight fighter, and he is, I believe he was a 5th-ranked fighter at the time, showing up to fight.
I think they said that he moved up to 5th after he beat McGregor. So he actually moved up beating McGregor in the lightweight. So he was, I think he was like 7th or so.
Yeah, that sounds about
right.
Going
into the first fight.
Right. But, they moved it up to welterweight for the first fight because Nate was fighting on short notice. Naturally, they're going to make the fight work. So he's going to cut a little bit of weight just to kind of even things out. And then eventually Conor said, no, let's just fight at welterweight, make it easy on both of us. So,
which is probably a good idea, at least for the first fight.
Exactly.
Don't want Nate killing himself out there trying to make weight on 1 week's notice.
And as we know, Conor was bringing it to him a little bit in the first round, but
Gassed
that was
himself early.
Yep, and that played into Nate's game. In second round, he put it on him and finished him. But that second fight, in my opinion, should have never been at welterweight. From my understanding, it seemed like they just didn't want to taint his legacy a little bit.
I think McGregor just really saw a challenge in front of himself where he said, listen, I lost at this weight. I don't think anyone's ever going to believe I can win at it. I think he was just trying to prove himself. I think he wanted to prove it to himself, but also prove to everyone else, listen, weight, like he says, weight's nothing to me. And I think he believes that. You know what I mean? Like he even said it the other day. He said, I think it's frustrating that people say I can't cut back down to featherweight. Because he said, I can.
Right.
He said, well, if I have to,
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I will too, but I mean, the guy, what he does is talk. He talks. That's his thing.
I mean, in my opinion, he could say that all he wants, but I mean, he's fighting a lightweight fighter at welterweight as well. But I mean, when we look at the facts, Conor McGregor's essentially a lightweight in terms of size. So when he moves up to welterweight, it's not like there's a huge disparity in their weights. I mean, I'd like to argue Nate might have been 10, 12 pounds heavier when, on fight day.
I'm pretty sure he was 3 times the size of McGregor in that fight.
I don't know. I think you're...
Everyone, I mean...
at least that's what people would try to say to, protect their boy McGregor.
He was literally 200 pounds more than McGregor in that fight.
And I guess I should say that, I like McGregor, to an extent. To an extent, I like Conor McGregor. And then what I'm getting to with my prediction here, or at least my analysis here, he's moving down to lightweight officially to fight the champ of the division, when he was formerly fighting Nate Diaz, who, when he fought him the first time, was the number 7 ranked lightweight, and when he fought him the second time was the number 5 ranked lightweight. And I mean, he didn't look incredible against Nate Diaz. I mean, he looked like Conor McGregor, but not the dominating featherweight Conor McGregor. So now he's moving down to lightweight to fight a killer in Eddie Alvarez. He's as tough as they come.
For sure.
And someone who brought it to Rafael Dos Anjos like that and finished him in the first round, he looked good. He's back with his trainer, Mark Henry, looking better than ever. And, I mean, I would even argue this is Conor's best stylistic matchup in the top 5.
Probably.
You look at the rest of them, Khabib, Tony Ferguson.
Ooh, I want to talk about that. After we're done with this, I want to talk about Tony Ferguson and McGregor.
Perfectly. But that's... I don't know. It's a tough matchup for McGregor. I think people aren't giving Alvarez enough credit, to be honest. I don't see him putting Alvarez away, and I think that Alvarez has more tools. He's a better wrestler than Nate Diaz. He doesn't have as much reach as Nate Diaz, but he can put those combos together, and he's got vicious power, and he's willing to jump into a brawl with Conor McGregor.
I have 2 theories, and I am by absolutely no means am an MMA expert. I am just starting to get into the sport really heavily. But I have 2 theories that I think about, 2 misconceptions about Conor McGregor that I'd like to share my thoughts on. See maybe where you stand on this. So there's 2 things. One of them is people say he tires out early. That's my one I'd like to address. Number 2 is his weight when he fought against Nate Diaz. So the first thing about, and these kind of tie together. So let me talk through this here for a second and see if I can get it all in my head correctly here. McGregor is going to be cutting at least a little bit of weight to get down to 155. Probably not a whole lot, because if I'm correct, when he fought at 170, he didn't cut any weight and weighed in at 168.
Right.
Correct? I don't think he had to cut any weight.
Right.
So my theory here is, if he cuts to 155, on fight day, he'll probably be fighting not too far off of 168 again in this fight. He'll probably be fighting maybe just a couple pounds lighter than that, actually on fight day, than like at what he fought Nate Diaz against. Mm-hmm. So I think he's probably going to be having a similar weight during this fight. So the gas tank you saw during that fight, don't expect it to be significantly different in this second fight. Mm-hmm. My second theory is where people say, he has bad cardio. I think in that first fight, yeah, he definitely gassed out early. Those spinning kicks were definitely taking a little something off of him.
Right.
He'd never fought at such a weight class, especially when his fights right before that were 28 pounds less. You know what I mean? Or I'm sorry, not 23 pounds less.
Yeah.
And of course, he gained some weight on fight day, and when he's actually there in the octagon, he's not weighing 145 and looking he's about to die on us like he does at weigh-ins. Mm-hmm. But, and that second fight, man, people say, he gassed out in the second. Did he, though? He won a 5-round decision. And the thing about this is, at the end of the third round, it looked like there was no way McGregor was going to win this fight at the end of the third. When he went to his corner, the part that stuck out to me the most is Kavanaugh in his corner had nothing to say at the end of the third. They were wiping off the sweat, they were giving him some water, and they were dead silent for about 30 seconds, just like, what do we do? Mm-hmm. It looked over. McGregor found something left in that gas tank and came out and put on one of the most incredible shows of heart in that fourth round to help win that fight. And I don't think that his gas tank is as bad as everyone says it is. He won a 5-round fight that went to decision against a guy with incredible cardio.
I'd argue that's all heart, too, because, he was walking hands on hips away from him, looking at Nate over the shoulder. He definitely looked gassed, but that's what separates good fighters from great fighters, is that level of heart that draws out. I think that's
underrated. He talks so much smack that I don't think people think he has the heart he does. He lives for this. He says it. He says, all I do is train. Sometimes it's hard to take what he says at face value, sure. Yeah. And he's fighting the guy that I think is the poster boy for heart. You know what I mean? Eddie Alvarez is probably the poster boy for having heart in a fight.
Absolutely.
But McGregor, I think the heart he has and the gas tank he has are being a little underrated here. I think he's going to come into this fight with just as much of a chip on his shoulder to win this fight as Eddie Alvarez is.
Yeah, that's a tough call to make, honestly. When he's going to get put into a dogfight with Eddie Alvarez, who's, in my opinion, a superior fighter to Nate Diaz, who's great in his own right, but at the moment, Eddie Alvarez is looking incredible. so long as his cardio holds up, which in the past it's always shown to hold up, he has great cardio. Back when he was in Bellator, he put on some wars.
Oh, I just watched his first fight that he had with Michael Chandler last night.
And Michael Chandler's no slouch either. If he
No
was
way.
in the UFC, he would easily be top 5 in my opinion.
For sure. Yeah. He's a dog. There's a couple things about this fight that are very intriguing to me when I look at them on paper. One of them is the reach advantage McGregor has, and his record he has when he fights guys with a shorter reach. He's extremely good at keeping you right outside of his reach. He's very good at controlling that space. And for Eddie Alvarez to get in there and want to hit McGregor, he's going to have to get inside of that reach. And, McGregor, if there's anything he's good at, is he is an absolute technician with his boxing. I just think that if he's going to win this fight, it's going to be by keeping Alvarez at bay, you know what I mean? Keeping him just outside of that jab. And if Alvarez comes in, I think what you might see if McGregor gets a knockout, I think what might happen is you're going to have Alvarez who likes to throw a lot of shots to the body. You might see him try and get that big right hand to the body and leave himself exposed on that left side or on the right side of his head where McGregor's left would come through.
Yeah.
And I think that if there's any way he knocks him out, he's going to catch Alvarez coming in for a body shot with the right and crack him with a hard left.
I honestly don't foresee that happening just because Eddie Alvarez is the champ for a reason. I think he's got a skilled trainer in Mark Henry in his corner.
Very skilled trainer.
And I don't think he's going to make any mistake like that. I think he's going to have a good game plan to avoid those in my opinion pretty predictable big shots from McGregor. I shouldn't say predictable in a certain sense, but he's got great movement, but his big shot is that step back left counter he likes to throw. And if Alvarez wants to get into the box and go toe-to-toe with McGregor, I think he's going to be smart enough to know how to evade that heavy left.
He very well
I
might
don't
be.
think it's something that he hasn't seen before. I think he's going to be able to find a way around it and get into his game plan.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I don't think he's going to make any silly mistakes, but you never know. McGregor, if there's one thing he can do, he has that sniper precision where he can just find your chin from different angles. And, another interesting thing I kind of want to discuss is, a lot of people say that on the ground, this fight's going to be an absolute wash with Alvarez as the clear winner on the ground.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that they are both technically brown belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and McGregor's actually had his brown belt longer than Alvarez has. Now, some people argue that he looks more like a purple belt with the way he actually demonstrates his ability on the ground in fights, but technically they do have the same belt, and McGregor has had that belt longer, but the difference is the wrestling aspect of it. Alvarez's ability to get him to the ground, keep him on the ground, win that takedown battle. But I think McGregor's pretty good at actually defending takedowns. I think he's shown a pretty good ability to sprawl out of a takedown.
He has the toughest wrestler he faced was Chad Mendez, but that's one of Alvarez's big games is he is a good takedown artist. He was a wrestler. I don't believe he was a collegiate wrestler. I want to say he was a state champ in high school, but still after years of training, he's got an explosive double leg takedown, and Conor's shown that he's susceptible to that. Nate's not a good wrestler. He's not a great takedown wrestler. He's got good jits.
He's a good jiu-jitsu artist, but he's not necessarily the best at getting you down to the ground.
That's another factor that McGregor's going to have to look out for is the takedown. That's another factor that's going to be scary for him. That's why I think it's a tough matchup for McGregor. I mean, in my opinion, though, like we were saying earlier, it might be his best option at lightweight. But it's definitely not an easy fight and one that I don't see too promising for him.
So here's what I think. I think Alvarez does have a clear advantage where he doesn't ever have to worry about McGregor probably taking this to the ground. He doesn't have to worry about that. McGregor does have to worry about the takedown. And I could see Alvarez faking takedowns early because McGregor's probably going to be thinking in his head, he's going to try and take this to the ground, work me down there on the ground, and try and just grind this fight out as much as he can. I think Alvarez has the ability to just say, let me start early faking takedowns to make him think I will, maybe open up some shots here on the feet. That's a pretty big thing you can have. Someone posted on Reddit, I believe it was today or yesterday. Again, how credible is this? Probably not very at all. But they said that a friend of a friend took a picture of him and of Alvarez and Woodley together at the airport flying to MSG, and he had told Woodley that he's not planning on taking or basically shooting for takedowns all fight like some people think he is.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting tidbit. Who knows what he's actually going to do in this fight?
I I honestly never expected him to utilize his wrestling as a
He
whole because
doesn't
he's
do
got
it that
good
much, honestly.
stand-up.
I feel like he's more comfortable probably in his stand-up than on the ground. It sure seems like it in most of his fights.
What most people don't realize is I think that his takedown game is more of a it's just another asset of his game. That's not the one-dimensional thing that he goes to. He's predominantly a striker, and then he uses those takedowns to throw you off. That's part of his game plan. It gets you thinking, because when you start thinking takedown, like you were saying, I don't know if he'll even feint it. I'm sure he'll be feinting some of those takedowns, but eventually he's going to shoot in and try and take him down, because once he does get him to the ground, Conor's going to have to keep thinking about that, and he's going to have to get the gears working, and he's going to have to readjust his game plan and kind of see where he goes from there.
You know, another interesting thing, Alvarez has been cracked a lot in his time as a fighter.
Yeah.
He gets rocked often, and you know, that's a scary thing against a guy like McGregor, who definitely has the ability to rock you.
Right.
We noticed when he fought Diaz, he couldn't quite take him out, but knocking a guy like Diaz down 3 times, getting him about as close to a knockout as you possibly could without actually finishing the job, it's pretty impressive for a guy that's notoriously got a pretty great chin. So Alvarez, who, you know, he's been rocked several times, but he fights through it very often, is able to recover pretty quickly, and get himself back in the fight. I would not be shocked to see him get rocked in the first or second round, but be able to take it into the championship rounds, even though he withstands maybe a storm early. I think Conor, he's one of those guys that always brings the storm early in a fight. Always brings a storm early. He's not a guy that likes. He's not a feel out period guy. If anyone's feeling out the period, they're gonna be feeling out a couple jabs or a couple strong left hooks from Conor, at least attempting to get those straight lefts or those hooks coming in. Neither of these guys are going to try and feel anything out. The only thing they're going to be feeling is going to be glove to chin in that first round.
I definitely think that Conor's best bet at winning this fight is an early TKO. I don't think that if it goes to the later rounds, 3rd, 4th, and once we're in the championship rounds, I don't think he's going to have the gas tank to put him away. Yeah, he's got the heart to kind of put some pressure on, land a couple big shots.
Does Alvarez. That's the thing. They both have heart, man.
But Alvarez also has cardio. He's been there before. He's been deep in those championship rounds multiple times. I mean, what is it? This would be he's been to the championship rounds, I believe, 3 times, and I think only one of them he might have lost.
He lost in the 4th round to Chandler in the first time. He actually got choked out and tapped in that fight. Like I said, I just watched it last night, so I have the benefit of it being fresh in my mind. But another thing, you said he has great cardio. The Diaz brothers are known for their cardio, and McGregor was able to outlast one 5 rounds. So I that's what I'm saying. I think his cardio is being a little underrated, where people are saying, you know, Alvarez can out cardio him. A guy who's known as a master of cardio in Nate Diaz, he was able to at least keep up with him through 5.
To be fair, Nate's never been to the 5th round either. I mean, they have great cardio, but
there comes a point you need that championship round experience.
He's mainly been fighting in 3-round fights. Now, his brother's been in a few championship fights, you know, with Carlos Condit, and he's shown he's got the gas tank. But we'd never seen Nate go 5 rounds, so that was interesting. I think that kind of played a factor into it a little bit.
It definitely could have. But, I mean, Nate looked good in the 5th.
Yep, he definitely did. But it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup. I just don't see Conor retaining the level of power he has in those first 2 rounds. And if it goes past the 2nd round, I think Alvarez takes it handily. The first 2 rounds, I'd see Conor, you know, potentially knocking him out.
I said this isn't what we want. We don't want to say if this and this happens. What's your prediction? We need a legit, straight-up prediction. Who wins and how do they win it?
My prediction, Eddie Alvarez by 3rd round knockout.
Okay, see, that's what I wanted to hear. Because, like I said, everyone says if it goes early, McGregor could take it. If it goes late, I want to know what you actually think is going to happen.
I think he's going to bring the junkyard dog that 3rd round. I think he's going to get some life in him, and I think he's going to put him away. He's going to bring it to McGregor like McGregor's never had it brought to him before.
That's very possible, but I also think this might be the best McGregor we've ever seen in the UFC.
Yeah.
You know, Kavanaugh said at 145 was too cold, 170 was too hot, and 155 feels about just right for McGregor. I definitely think that's going to be the case. We might see a McGregor like we've never seen before at this weight.
It's possible.
But at the same time, he's fighting a dog. You know what I mean?
He's fighting a dog, junkyard dog in Eddie Alvarez.
Hear me out. If I had to bet money, because this fight to me is so neck and neck talent-wise, if I had to bet money, I'd bet money on Alvarez because he's the underdog in the fight. You'd make more money betting on Alvarez. I would bet money on Alvarez.
Yeah.
But because I'm not betting money and I'm straight up making a prediction of what I think will happen, I think, and this is, I've been trying to study this fight as much as I can. I could be so wrong. For all we know, Alvarez could one-punch Conor.
Yeah,
you never
absolutely.
know.
That's what makes this sport fantastic.
I think what could happen, because Conor is a counter puncher. Eddie sometimes gets a little worked up and can throw some wild, lazy shots from the hip. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets rocked early in the fight, but is able to recover. And maybe the second or third round, maybe he senses blood and tries to throw one or two from the hip, and Conor counter punches and is able to land one on the chin. I would predict Conor McGregor wins this. Like I said, I think he's going to rock him early, and that will not be the end of the fight. I think Alvarez will recover and put a storm on McGregor at some point.
Yeah.
I just think that I will go with the third round as well. I will say McGregor wins the first. I think Alvarez wins the second, and I think Alvarez gets him close, kind of like what happened in the third between Diaz and Conor. I think he gets close to finishing him in the second. He comes out swinging in the third, and after having time to recover, McGregor is going to be able to catch him in the third.
I can definitely see that happening too. And like I said, in my opinion, this is his easiest matchup, in the top 5. Those are some killers there. So Conor's got to be chomping at the bits that, he's getting the champ, and in my opinion, probably his easiest matchup, which is kind of sad to say, but that's not saying a lot because, he's not an easy matchup for anybody, but stylistically, compared to the other people in the top 5, that's not an easy matchup.
I want McGregor to win more so just for the entertainment aspect of it too. Could you imagine when he puts that second strap on the shoulder, Rogan approaches him with that mic, and he just drops some knowledge on us right there in the middle of the octagon? Just how incredible of a moment. If McGregor wins 2 titles in MSG, holy cow, man. We would have huge. A spectacle. And what are you going to say from now on? People say he doesn't deserve this title fight because he's never beat a legit top 5 guy at lightweight, even though he did beat Nate Diaz, who was technically a top 5 guy at the time.
Right.
What would you have left to say about the guy if he's able to finish this fight? I think it's a better matchup for him than Nate Diaz, and just in the terms of his reach, I think that he had problems with the fact that he actually had to fight a guy a little bit longer than him. I don't think he was ever used to having that as a situation in a fight.
No, never.
No, never. And a guy, especially a guy who could take, as he says, no one could take that left-hand shot. Someone could. He ran into a guy who took that left-hand shot.
Now that we think about that, he did fight Max Holloway, but Max Holloway is more of a natural featherweight.
That was 21-year-old Max Holloway, though.
Yeah, that was a very good point.
Max Holloway.
But yeah, that was
that was pre what 9
moons
fight
ago.
That was like pre 9 fight win streak.
Yeah, that was a couple moons ago.
Yeah, that's a brand new Max Holloway we're talking about here. But you'll take Alvarez, I'll take McGregor. Man, will that be a fun fight? We'll be watching it together. Probably. I'm
excited.
I'm a little nervous because I know we're on opposite sides of the fence here.
Yeah.
And we both predict a third round finish in this fight. Like I said, I predict McGregor to win the first, Alvarez to win the second, Alvarez to come a little maybe not as technically sound at the beginning of the third, trying to come out and finish, and McGregor counter punches after getting a breather. So, and you said you have Alvarez finishing the fight, TKO in the third?
Yep. Oh, even possibly a submission.
Wow.
I'm not the biggest Eddie Alvarez fan. I do like him, and that's why
it's hard not to like.
I just want to see a good fight, to be completely honest. I like Eddie Alvarez. He's an Everton fan. Shouts out Everton Prem League after a bad Chelsea week, but that's besides this. But I don't know. So long as it's a good fight, I'll enjoy it, regardless of the outcome. But in my mind, I just don't see this going McGregor's way outside of an early first or second round TKO.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight. Now, before we change topics off of UFC, I do want to say that I think if there's any fight I'd want to see right now, we talked about this just before we turned on the mics. I think Conor McGregor and Tony Ferguson would be a heck of a fight to watch at this point right now.
Yeah. After Tony Ferguson's performance against Rafael dos Anjos, he showed some life and a lot of toughness I hadn't seen out of him before. And that's an intriguing matchup. He's got a lot of reach too, and he's real unorthodox, kind of like Conor, except in a different way. Tony brings a real aggressive, wild style of fight, and to bring that to Conor, that's interesting. That'd be a very interesting fight.
Yeah, it would be. Especially, I was saying, Ferguson lately has been saying how Conor McGregor ripped his style, at least on the microphone, how he thinks he stole a lot of his sound bites from him. So I think it would be pretty interesting to see two guys fighting each other who both would just stand and bang. They're both kind of long guys with unorthodox styles, like you said, but also who have a lot of talent on the mic. They could talk circles around each other all day long at these press conferences. I feel like the build-up would be crazy, the fight would be crazy, and if McGregor wins this fight, that is very realistically the next fight to make.
In my opinion, I would say so. But I also want to throw this wrench into the mix. If Khabib gets a big win against Michael Johnson, it's tough to see where that goes as well, because he's been in line. He dismantled the champ, but I mean, Rafael did in a different way too, or I should say Tony did it to Rafael in a different way. So I guess I'm with you there that Tony gets the edge right now in the championship fight, but Khabib, if he gets that decisive win, that's going to be huge. I think that if Conor wins and he ends up fighting Khabib at some point, that's a nightmare fight for Conor. I think he gets absolutely
Oh, yeah. I think that's
mauled.
a nightmare fight as well. We could see Conor take some time off after this fight. Like,
Yep.
there is rumors that he does have a big announcement to make after the fight. He's kind of denied saying that there's anything crazy coming out of the woodworks on that front. We'll see what actually happens at MSG after the fight. Hopefully, he'll say it with 2 titles on his shoulders. I'm excited.
It's going to be fun.
60 G's, baby.
It's going to be fun.
Oh my goodness.
It's going to be fun.
I have not been this excited for a fight in some time. This might be more exciting to me than the Nate Diaz fight number 2. The
Yeah.
best part is we haven't even had them all get together for this press conference yet. We haven't had that final build up yet where they're all just gonna, drop some really good.
Hopefully
some really
no
good
water
audio
bottles
clips.
are thrown.
Well, Thompson had him covered last time. Thompson stole those water bottles from right underneath him when Alvarez started
He
getting.
sneaked them out of his way.
Yeah, he did. That's what I'm saying. You need a guy like Thompson in your life. You need a good best friend like him to keep you out of trouble.
Exactly, that nice guy who's
That's
also
what
a
I'm saying.
killer. He's got your back.
He snuck those water bottles right out of the way, and he said,
Weasel
"You know
move.
what? I got my boys back right here." So, man, I'm very excited for these fights. This is going to be November 12th. Saturday night, starting at 10 o'clock is the main card. I believe 7 o'clock is going to be the Fox Sports 1 prelims. We are going to see some brawls. We're going to see some of the best fights you've probably ever seen in your life, with a lot of top 5 contenders fighting.
Yeah, don't just watch the McGregor fight, folks. Watch every single one of those fights, because they're all going to be great fights.
It's going to be madness. So, actually, I see there's some people outside right now in the lobby. It looks like they're trying to come in here soon. So we might wrap this up here a little short. It looks like they want to use this, and we're just in here recording a podcast. So I think we got everything we really wanted to cover about this UFC 205 card. So
Yeah.
we can probably call this a wraps. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is like I said, my friend Dakota here. He'll probably be back again. We'll do this another time. Not like a set thing we're going to do every week or anything, but when we have some spare time, we can sit down in the studio. It's always fun to come in here and talk, something a little different than usual.
Yeah, it was a good time.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.